Welcome to Inside the Set with Set Decor. Inside the Set is a series that focuses on the design and decor of stories that excite us and ignite our imaginations, where we get to discuss the collaborations between production designers and set decorators, and hear firsthand accounts of how those works of art came to be, from their inception to ideas on the page through completion, where we sit in the dark and experience them collectively.
Welcome to Inside the Set with Set Decor. I'm Rae Deslich SDSA. Today I'm pleased to welcome set decorator Schwartz Bartlett SDSA and production designer Jessie Haddad to discuss their collaboration on the absurdly hilarious Hulu crime comedy series, Deli Boys. Rachel and Jessie, thank you for joining me.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you, Rae.
Let's start at the very beginning. How did you come to work on the project, and what in particular brought you to it? Rachel, if you would tell us.
Sure. I actually met Jessie about 6 years ago. We worked on the fourth season of Fargo together, and we've been trying to work on another project since then. But time didn't align properly, and immediately after the strikes were resolved last year, this came up, and she called, and I was thrilled to be able to do this with her. It's basically how it happened.
What great timing.
Perfect timing. Yeah.
And Jessie, what about you? How did you come to join this project?
Luckily, my agent at the time, Ivana Savic, was wonderfully put me up for this, and I had a really great meeting with Abdullah Saeed and Nisha Ganatra at the time. Nisha Ganatra directed the pilot, and Abdullah's the creator, and we just had a lovely discussion. It was about the pilot. It was all going to be shot in 5 days, and it was going to be quick. And we made the pilot, and a few months later, it went to series. And then during the writing strike, everything was kind of put on hold. So it pushed until the end of November. And then finally, when the actors resolved their negotiations, everything kind of picked right back up again. And we quickly hit the ground running. And I quickly called Rachel, and I was like, please, please, please say you're available. And she was. And thankfully, we were able to finally work together in this capacity and not, art director, assistant decorator. So it was really, really a blessing. And we hit the ground running right away.
Yes, day one. Yeah.
And have you worked together before then as set deck and art director?
No.
I was an assistant decorator, and she was art directing for Fargo, but that was the only other time we worked together.
Yeah.
I
Paper
see.
Girls.
Yes. Oh, right. Briefly on Paper Girls too. Yes, that's right.
Well, that's good. I'm happy that you two had already had a little bit of a familiarity with each other. Yeah. What were your initial conversations, both together and with the director, about the look and the feel of the show? I have to say, it's a gorgeous show. It's so fun. It's so beautiful. The sets are just so wonderfully layered and realistic, but also full of character. It's just, but you both did an amazing job, and I'm so impressed. What was the starting point artistically for the show? Was it looking at the pilot and then kind of seeing where you wanted to move from there?
I think it was, we were trying to sort of recreate a lot of the stuff that was in the pilot. Like the deli, for example, was filmed entirely on location. And we had to recreate it completely on stage. So it was a sort of, meticulous, like this area looks like this, and we're going to just go from there and keep, moving forward. And then I think it was also really important for the showrunners for this to really represent Philly, because, they were all basically from there, and it was really important for them to represent the city that they love so much. So that was kind of a starting point.
Jessie, what about you? What were your conversations with the showrunners like? What did they emphasize?
The emphasis was definitely on Philly. Thankfully, at that point, we had the very talented Michelle Nader and Jenny Connor more involved with Abdullah. And we had some very deep conversations about, making Chicago feel like Philly. So while Rachel and her super talented team were feverishly going crazy to fill this deli that we were building and finding a new exterior that wasn't like sadly the pilot. We didn't have that same exterior, which as a designer kind of gets you, but you just hope that people don't notice. We had to find a new location, and the new location had a vestibule. We had lots of changing around of the set, and Rachel's very calmly was like, we're going to get it done. We're going to get it done. We're going to fill these stacks, and she's going to figure out all the clearances. And, she meticulously made this feel like a Pakistani bodega, as well as an American stacked, local deli convenience store. And in Philly, they're very particular. They're so elaborate on the outside, so colorful. So we had to find the exterior while the art department was working on the exterior. Rachel was stacking the interior and finding all the worry beads and making, graphics with David, and making each and every cigarette pack, and clearing and putting up American flags and Pakistani flags, and getting all the graphics and the neons and the product. It was a gargantuan task for what, 6 weeks of prep, Rach? Like,
Yeah, 6
not
weeks.
a lot. So while they were doing that, they were replicating I think it was a place called Omar Foods down on Roosevelt. While they were replicating that, because we were going to be in this deli so much that it was going to be such a permanent set, such a huge build for us. Painters were aging and mucking it up in the ceiling, and while they were doing that, I was feverishly diving into the 70s for Baba's apartment, because Baba's apartment was such a mind cave of Baba's that it had to be just right. So we went back and forth between 80s and 70s, right, Rachel? And it was like both of us decided that we were going to really make them love the 70s, because we're children of the 70s.
It is, exactly. Yeah.
In fact, I feel like we're 10 days apart in
Days
birthday.
apart, exactly.
Go
Yep.
girl. So we had both loved the 70s. We loved the fashion, the color palette, the earth tones, the jewel tones. So I worked very diligently to deep research of these amazing, gaudy specifically South Philly. And I found this amazing research on Instagram called South Philly Time Capsules. And I just ate it up. Like, I found the complete wallpaper on the ceiling. And I just really wanted Baba's apartment to feel like the secret lair that he didn't want to show his very Americanized sons, the bathroom toilet paper. Rachel got actual green toilet paper, and we put carpet all the way around, the bathtub. And there's this beautiful scene with mirror and milky water with flowers in the blue. It's just everything. Rachel found this most beautiful, vintage sheets for the beds in the bedroom, with those quilted covers. And the kitchen was just green exploded in there, and with the vinyl flooring, and the listening room, that right there with the music equipment. I was so lucky to have Rachel as a partner in this, because she found such beautiful items that made me change my design ever so, just to fit them in there. Found 8-track tapes and speakers, and such gorgeous things that we could feature in everywhere.
I think for both of us, we were really channeling our own childhoods and things that we were bringing into it. Like the sheets, for example, that you were talking about, I was searching for those because those were the sheets that my parents had on their bed in the late 70s and early 80s. So I was trying to, channel my favorite things from growing up, old sitcoms and things that I kind of remembered from being, around that age, basically, and, 70s, early 80s. But yeah, it was fun.
I saw those sheets, and the same. I was like, oh, I think we had that comforter.
Yeah.
You were just unlocking sense memories.
It did, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How wonderful that you found, Jessie, that Instagram, the South Philly Time. That's so specific.
It was so
crazy.
Good. And Michelle Nader is from Philly, and she grew up around these mob guys, and Abdullah went to school in Philly. And so it was really important to find that just so Philly flair of, it's an apartment too over a deli, so something that we couldn't make a what's it called, the hearth, so we built up with platforms and covered in Elmo colored, carpeting. And there's this amazing photo that I gave Rachel very early on that inspired the entire set of Babas. And it was this gorgeous image of, I think it was Amitabh Bachchan. He's a famous Bollywood actor. He's sitting there, it's scripted too. Abdullah scripted that was filled with music and record players and playboys. And it's like this mix of haram and halal, which is lawful and unlawful. And, halal is for food, but also for your practice in life. So this man is a mix of both. And he has like, cigarettes and cigars and drug paraphernalia, but also playboys and also, like banjos and Pakistani musical instruments and, decor that Rachel so put together wonderfully with this amazing lighting. And anyway, this photo of Amitabh is him sitting in front of like 8-track, like old 70s stereo equipment. And he's sitting there with his hairy chest coming out of his big collared shirts, and he's reading a Playboy, and it was like the perfect Baba reference.
I think that reference image also really shows the way that Indian and Pakistani culture also influenced American culture and design so immensely. The conversation about immigrants coming to America is usually about like, oh, they come here and they take on our culture. But what it really is America takes on immigrants' culture. 70s design owes so much to subcontinent design, to Indian and Pakistani design, that you look at that apartment and it's like it's very, very 70s, and it's also very, very Pakistani, and you see it's just so much in his culture. And I love that you called it a mind palace too. It is very much like, shows like Flight Attendant, who use a whole separate, person cuts to a place in their brain. And this was like Baba's like a weird crime mind palace.
Yes.
Rachel, what were some of your very specific, especially like decor references that you used, or research sources?
Sure. There was a lot of, deep diving on books that I had in the house to kind of go through, vintage books from the time to see what actual homes look like of that era. And there were also very specific window treatments. Like we had a really specific, very 70s woven green window treatment that we had made with, dead stock from the 70s. So it was really important for me to make things feel as realistic as possible, but also because the colors and the wallpapers that Jessie chose and her team were so amazing and so beautiful, we wanted to, work with them and highlight all of the beautiful bright colors with the textiles that we brought in. So it was really important that we chose really specific and sort of time appropriate stuff for that as well. But it was a lot of internet searching, a lot of, deep dives in books, but basically, yeah, it was a lot of time on Pinterest as well.
I just want to credit our producer, Aisha Rakadia, was in the art department every day with us. Every day going, no, that's not right. You need a loti there. You need, like it was amazing. It was such a vibe of everyone in our art department. Rachel was in the art department and we were in her little closet of a room and we were all making things together. And Samia Malik is the Pakistani Muslim representative in the art department. And she was just like, people like Kaylee Brenneman was coming to her for costume advice. And Rachel and her were so collaborative on the wedding and dolki and all the cultural references. It was such a beautiful family. And I just want to thank Rachel so much. Yeah, it was such a beautiful group of people.
It was definitely the most collaborative group of people that I've ever worked with on anything before. There were no egos involved. Nobody was really stepping on anybody's toes. It was just pure conversation, and everybody just tried to make it look as beautiful as possible. So we were really fortunate with the group that we had.
And what about research for not just the historical aspects, but Philly authenticity or mob history or things like that?
Yeah, definitely. And there was a lot of research. We're really fortunate in Chicago to have a beautiful South Asian community. So there was a lot of time. I have to shout out my buyer, Megan Gaudet, who worked tirelessly. She loaded up the truck with all of the stuff for the deli, basically. But she spent a lot of time on Divan and was trying to really make this as, authentic as possible, finding the really appropriate furniture pieces and fabric to sort of speak to, a Pakistani American family. So that was the most fun for us.
The exterior of the deli, I was surprised in your design materials to see that you built an exterior on the stage, which I fully didn't realize when I was watching the series. You cannot tell it all.
That's so cool. Thank you.
It's absolutely, it's beautiful. And then also the transformation between the location that you used and the deli. The impression that you get of the deli exterior in the show is that it's far more expansive. I mean, it looks like the deli spills out into the entire exterior of the building, and then you see the building that it was built on too, and you're like, oh, that's not remotely a deli.
No, yeah.
That's like an apartment building with a little corner storefront, and
It's nothing.
you just put an awning on top of it and then let the deli sort of spill out the front doors and crawl along the outsides of the building.
Yeah.
It's really the transformation between the location before you laid a hand on it and afterwards is amazing.
I'm so lucky to have such a stellar team. Like my art director got that awning. He was just chasing the awning while everybody was just doing their job so well and so meticulously and so well timed. And Rachel saw that mural and was like, girl, and it was, that mural was actually based off of a Pakistani buses. I don't know if you've ever seen those painted buses in Pakistan. They're so meticulous, and they've got that's so much more detail than we did there. But if you notice, the camera department put them on the jackets, and the actors are proudly wearing that Bengal tiger is now our mascot. But we wanted to make it, the exterior, really, really feel like you were not only in a convenience store, American convenience store down the corner that had sandwiches and Philly hoagies, but also that representing the culture, the Desi culture. They're so proud of their culture, and they're so colorful. And there's bells and flags and maybe you could go in there and get some chaat and curry and bread things. And that's very much what it's like on Divan Street. And I'm so proud of the way Rachel immerses herself in this new culture that I don't know how much she had before working with me on Deli Boys, because I grew up with this in the Middle East, and none. It's amazing.
None. Yeah,
Rachel,
I love it so much. Yeah.
she's basically an honorary Desi now.
I'm actually old friends with Matt Hyland.
You are.
I used to live in Chicago, and I used to work there as well. So yeah,
What a
I know
wonderful
Devon.
human.
Yeah, so sweet. I know a couple of your crew members. That's fantastic. So yeah, I'm very, very happy to see all of them
Small
doing so
world. This is
well.
you.
I was actually surprised in the design materials to see how much was the build. There were sets that could have easily been locations, but they were builds. Things like Ali's apartment or maybe the hotel room, things like that. But it felt like you built almost everything. And that's really remarkable. What informed your choices to do so?
Well, as you know, our show is quite bloody, which I love. I love Jenny and Michelle and Abdullah's just penchant for over bloodyification. And going into a gorgeous hotel like a Four Seasons or the Drake, or something downtown. Gosh, it'll come with a lot of cleanup, and a lot of insurance. So we knew right away that episode, Andrew On, so brilliantly directed, was them, saving Lucky from a hotel room. And this is a Tan Franz, and everybody was so excited to have Tan Franz on this episode. So stylistically amazing. And he was just not himself. And so we were in this hotel room. We had to build it. We had to build it for the connection where, Asif is listening against the wall and they're going past the window. We had to build kind of the walk and talk of it all, and then the finding two rooms adjoining, finding a bathroom that was large enough we had to build a bathroom, and Rachel just made it look so spot on, like a high-end fixtures, and really wonderful last minute finds that we just had to get shipped. I thought, like, how many vanities did you buy, Rachel, that almost didn't make
At
it?
least 3, yeah. At least 3.
There are some really amazing decor finds in this hotel too. Things that if I were in, the Drake or another high-end hotel, I would look at it and be like, oh damn, that's nice. Particularly there's, I think, a brass trash can
Yeah.
that I don't think I've seen before. And it's just the most elegant hotel hallway trash can. What was sourcing like for all of these really high-end fixtures?
We were really lucky. I mean, most of the stuff was, things that we ordered online, but we're so fortunate in Chicago to have a lot of the high-end stores outlets that are here. So like, for example, the vanity was an extremely expensive vanity that we got at a very good price from one of the outlets of an unnamed store. But this set particularly was so much fun to do because it shows sort of like the dichotomy of this show. Like there's a lot of like, this is extremely high end, but there's also like so much dark and dirty and dingy like in the basement, which I think was really representative kind of what the show was about, on a whole. It was basically like these two brothers who had this very luxurious life, and then everything was basically taken out from under them. So I feel like there was a lot of contrast, which I really love, like really high end and then really sort of, gross and dark and dirty, which is so much fun to do.
And another thing that really determined what we were going to build versus finding a location, it was a lot of builds because it was a 5-day per episode. So really, once we built the amort sets, then it was a few here and there, like how many pawn shops? Like 4 pawn shops, 2 pawn shops that just had to be filled. And the reason is just so fast paced. And really, what's important in a comedy like this is the gag. If the story, it could be the most beautiful set, and if it's not funny and we're ruining the comedy of it all, then it's never going to get seen and never get be watched. So we really had to work with the gags, and it was really about timing and no moves, and not like working with children, but like really working with a tight timeline. And one example is like the FBI office. Rachel, what do we have? We had Chickie's office, we had the loading dock, all in one building.
Pediatrician's office, the brothers downstairs. I think there were 6 sets total in one building that we were just shooting, and we couldn't shoot off this direction because there would be another set that you would see basically. So it was
right.
Yeah.
We had a pediatrician's office in there. We had Chickie's loading dock. We had we had to basically, that was one of our location stages.
The pediatrician's office was another one that I thought could be a location, and then it's sort of half and half. It's built into a bare building, so it's and it was just because you needed to not have to go to an office over here and then company move to a warehouse over here and then company move to the FBI. You just needed to just push move to all of these different locations because of your intense schedule.
Right.
Wow.
And most of the locations that we went to, aside from the ones here, a lot of them were full, we had to fully broom all of the stuff out and bring our own stuff in. So it was just like, they were like mini stages basically that we were dealing with. Like, we would go into somebody's home, but everything they had in there was not representative of the character. So we would take literally everything out from, rugs to window treatments to lighting and all of the furniture, and then replace it with our own. So it was like working on a lot of mini stages, which is fun, but always a challenge.
Yeah, the set dressing for all of these sets is so much more intense than you see in the show because, that always happens. There's about 100% more pediatrician's office than I think we see. There's more FBI office than we see. There's more of that absolutely beautiful Baba's bathroom in his apartment. You just dressed so intensely and broadly. And they had there's just so much more that we got to see on camera. I loved being able to look at them in the design presentation.
Thank you.
Rachel, do you want to talk about all of the set decorating issues about doing a convenience store? Because that is just like, it's like a set decorator bugaboo.
Right.
Like, oh God, I have to do a store.
It was, you know, we honestly, again, I'm going to shout out my buyer, Megan. We were just, you know, we hit the ground running with that. Basically, like on day one, we had to just start loading it up with what we needed. I mean, it was just, you know, progressive, just you get piles and piles and piles of stuff that you realize, like, you know, you think you have a lot of items until you get in there and the whole room just eats it up so quickly. So it was just it was, you know, for weeks and weeks and weeks, we were just loading up, you know, the trucks would meet us at location, then we would just fill an entire truck with items. And, you know, there's a whole area of drug paraphernalia, so we would have to go to a very specific place to get those items. And, you know, there were some fake food items that we had to bring in, but most of the stuff in here was real. But, you know, a lot of it was unboxed. So our dressers had to meticulously unbox things and rebox them and close them back up. You know, it was a full effort from the entire team to get this together. It was a lot of a lot of items, but very fun.
And there's so many, in addition to the product, there's so many specific store fixtures
Yeah.
that you have to deal with, even for like your deli counter area. And then I see you have like the hand washing sink. Some of these things are required in those spaces by law. So it's not like an option for you to put them in. You're like, oh, well, we have to have hand washing sink. Yeah. We have to have this, you know, the refrigerator wall. You have gondolas. You have the counter and then the canopy over the counter that holds the cigarettes.
Well, and even then gondolas, it's things that, you know, most people wouldn't think about, but, you know, in a store, they don't have to be movable. But for television, all of them have to be on, you know, really you know, heavy duty casters so things can move out for camera. So everything had to be, you know, easily moved out of the way. And we also wanted to make sure that we put in a lot of Philly elements in there. So we had like Utz and everything, and tasty cakes were really, you know, prominent in the show. So we wanted to represent that as well. But
we've talked about Baba's apartment. What other sets would you say are really character sets that are really, you know, tied to a character or express them?
I think Chicky's house was really important to the show. His
Yeah.
office, which was not very big, but I thought was really representative of his character. It had a very sort of Godfather feel to it. It was really ornate lamps and you know, a beautifully carved desk to kind of give the impression that he was, you know, a big important mobster in town. And then we had a giant Super Bowl party at his house as well. So that was very representative of what was going on with his character.
At one point in the art department, we had like 50 fake Roman sculptures.
Oh.
It was so Sopranos meets Godfather meets Mob Wise, to quote Jenny and Michelle. You killed it. And props, Colin Bach and props and Rachel are just a dream team. Colin made a replica of the mayor of Philly that in one of the gags, his ear comes off. Chicky's mansion had a vault behind his office that he had, everything was in gold and displayed. And Rachel had to fill that and work with Colin to find like the hero items. Again, just part of the gag. And then there was a whole Super Bowl party happening on this 4-floor exotic mansion in downtown Chicago that Rachel had to fill like 2 full floors of. And it was not easy to get to. And like I said, no joke, there's a whole room full of Roman sculptures that and fake plants that Rachel and the art department had to source. And we have a lot of funny photos that I will share with you later of us interacting with these Roman sculptures. But bless your heart, there was so much food in this gorgeous food corner that you created for the kids. And
it was incredible. There was a pretzel sculpture of somebody.
Yes. That was all Colin. Colin is also from Philly, and he took this very seriously.
Yeah. Colin and I actually used to be like best friends.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we were.
What a
we were,
dream
like,
guy.
Twinsies back in the Indies.
That's amazing.
Yeah, we just like did every job. And everything together. Yeah, Chicky's house was absolutely palatial. It really did have kind of an updated Godfather feel to it.
Yeah. And I think even like the things that you don't think about as sets necessarily, but there were things like Prairie's car, which I thought was really important and like very indicative of her character. Like we had a bunch of crystals in there, and there was Palo Santo in the
Garland.
yeah, exactly. And like, it was just kind of speaking to her, very ethereal, very hippie character. We were trying to make it, everything that surrounded her feel like her, basically. So I think like even the little sets are very important.
Yeah.
That's true. Cars are an underrated
They
character
are.
set.
Yeah,
Yeah. And they do spend a lot of time in that car.
they
So
do. Yeah.
it does really establish her as a person.
Rachel,
Yeah.
even this FBI surveillance van that started off like small because they didn't have any
Oh,
money.
yeah.
And
Yes,
then you had
yes,
to like,
yeah.
yeah.
Cars I think vehicles are really important to we all spend so much time in our cars, so it's really important that like these are very representative of the characters too. So
I think one more big character set that's I think we often overlook is the enormous weddings and the dolke, the 3 day or whatever it takes a week wedding. And one of them was the dolke that Ahmed Ibrahim shot so beautifully. And then Jenny Connor's the final episode, the wedding and finding out like who the real baddie is in the movie. And it's just so layered and so many different beats in the wedding that I think Rachel was besties with the chai guy, the chaiwala at the end.
we were best friends, absolutely. Yeah, we spent so much time of 2 weeks basically at this location filming all of the stuff. So I learned so much filming these. I didn't even know what a dolke was before this, and now I feel very familiar with this. But it was beautiful.
Yeah, and it just looks so expensive and so elegant all over. Every single part of it looks like this family put money into it, and every single panel of everything either has the pattern on it or a flower trim on it or decor. It's absolutely everything in this whole room is decorated. It's fantastic.
I think we just wanted to make it seem like this was such a huge celebration. So everywhere you turned, there was something. Like there were little stations where you could get, shoes or bangles or have, henna done on your hands. I mean, we tried to make this as beautiful and as fun as possible. It was a huge celebration for these families. So
Yeah, and you even have two different color schemes, one for one night and one for the other, I think, right?
Yes. Yeah. The sort of more subdued was and more elegant was for the actual wedding, but the very, very brightly colored was for the days before for the dolke. It was
You basically put on two different weddings in this one, wedding episode.
And we had to collaborate with Kaylee Brenneman, the costume designer, who had to order this amazing costumes for
the most
beautiful pieces.
Yeah.
And I think it was a lilac, and we were just like, oh my God, what color is it going to be? And she's like, I don't know. Like it was, we just definitely did not want to clash with what they were buying.
And her team was so amazing throughout the entire show. They were very, forthcoming with all the colors of any costume that they were doing, so that this was, extremely cohesive with everything. That we wanted to have everything look like it was, one design idea basically. So yeah, her team was amazing.
Your flower order must have been enormous.
These were faux. But we found a person that was actually, this is Shalimar Banquet. We found a person that works with this actual location all the time. So it was great to collaborate with them.
So you just went to a vendor who does the thing.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
And I imagine that lent an additional level of authenticity and intensity to it. That they were like, we're going to put flowers on all the things that flowers get
and and we knew that it would be accurate and correct for sure. So
they did a fantastic job. It's such a beautiful, lush wedding.
Thank you.
Out of all of the things that we've talked about, what would you say were the biggest challenges on the project? And also, what were your greatest joys and satisfactions about it?
there were no, I feel like no real specific challenges to this project specifically, except what we all deal with, which is the time aspect of it. That was, that was the hardest. The turnarounds were extremely quick and the episodes were so fast. That was the only real challenge we dealt with, I think, on this show. But I mean, the positives so far outweighed anything negative about this. My team was great. Megan, my coordinator, Derek Davidson, everybody that worked in set dressing was truly amazing. And it was such a joy to work with Jessie and her team on this. So no complaints.
Was there a specific thing that stands out as like, what's your favorite set, or what was the hardest set?
I think, I mean, definitely just for sheer volume, the Deli was the hardest set for sure. It was just, it was up until the very last second, we were throwing things into that to make it, as layered as possible. And Baba's apartment was hands down my favorite to do. It was, Jessie's team did such an amazing job with the carpeted room and all of the wall coverings they had from, I believe, mostly from Aztec. It was so much fun to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Jessie, what about you? What were your biggest challenges and biggest joys on this project?
Oh God, far outweighing any challenges is the pleasure, the absolute pleasure to see, this brown representation show so integrating seamlessly, because after a couple episodes, you just forget that these are brown people and you just feel like they're humans, and they're humans going through everyday struggles. And that was number one. Number two, I think that there was a challenge in that once we got into episodic shooting, I spent so much time in prep with Matt Hyland and my team, getting these walls built, because Oz Rodriguez had to, the wonderful director for episode 2 and 3, really came in with like just trusting us, because nothing was up. He was in for prep and nothing was ready, and really just Rachel and Matt working together as Samya and Ryan Roberts and Mike Monkton, like aging as we're getting stuff dressed and they're aging. It's just the timing was good. Like I felt like we had a good amount of prep. It's just that once you get to shooting, I don't get to spend so much time as a designer on these sets to play with them. So there was a lot of, thank God I had such an amazing talent of a partner in Rachel and my art department, and the trust of the producers that we trust you, just do the thing, it's gonna be great. Like that was so invaluable to us, because when I'm basically scouting 3 out of the 5-day episodes and prepping the next episode. So really just not having enough time to play and sit with the team on camera and watch Rachel zhuzh and making, I had no worries about things being aged properly and feeling lived in. And that was, to me, speaking of Philly and Forgotten Bottom Streets and the neighborhood that this is in, South Philly, is really needed to feel gritty. And I had no worries with that. So thankfully, no challenges. I mean, every show has the same challenges, depending on the scale, whether it's multi-million, hundreds of millions and 3-year prep versus 6-7 weeks preps that we had. It's all the same, just different, and you really have to rely on your team. And thankfully, hire well and stay out of their way. That's my motto.
That's such a wonderful management strategy. How did SDSA business members support you on this project, and for what sets? Are there any ones in particular that you'd like to shout out?
Unfortunately, we do not have a lot in Chicago or in the Midwest. We don't have a lot of business members from SDSA. We were able to, though, use ISS a lot. There is a new location here in town, so we were able to use a lot of expendables from them. And then for the FBI van, we ordered a lot of, things that go blink basically in the car. But yeah, it was basically a lot of, we really tried to keep a lot of stuff local. So it was mostly, local vendors that we dealt with for this one.
Thank God for Aztec and the kitchen store in LA. Like all that wall paneling is from there, because and they actually have that beautiful textured paneling that you don't just find at Menards or Home Depot, or it was a treat to dive into that, and like the cork vendor and just Rachel finding the magical unicorn and a lot of places in Chicago, it's not like we have prop shops, right? Like you have to go and find the salvage shops and reclaim.
Yeah, it's a needle in a haystack a lot of times. Like we found all of the appliances for the kitchen intact. It was a beautiful, like, in perfect shape from 1978, but they were in Michigan. So we had to have somebody, go out and drive and bring them all to us here. But it was just, it's a lot of a Facebook marketplace and thrifting and vintage shops for us. So
That's an incredible find.
they were pristine, every single piece all together in one location, just being a house was being gutted in Michigan. And, we ran up there to get it. So
That's incredible. It speaks so much to your ingenuity that you were able to. I mean, I looked at those and I was like, oh, I know what prop house those were rented from. But
right.
in fact, you did not.
Yes. No, I lived in Lane for a long time, and it's definitely it's a different beast here to try and find stuff, because we do have a couple of prop houses, but they just don't have the volume of stuff that is in Los Angeles. So we have to kind of find them or we find them here. But it's part of the challenge, it's part of the fun. So
Yeah, it's very resourceful. You found some really, really amazing pieces.
thank you.
We did talk a little bit about collaborating with the costume designer, particularly in reference to the wedding, where of course
Mhm.
everything has to be in the same color scheme, and you
Mhm.
have to make sure that they're, very specific wedding suits don't clash with the backdrop and things like that. What other collaborations did you have specifically with the costume designer?
Weren't a lot of collaborations, I would say, but she was very forthcoming with what they were going to be wearing, just so we were aware of what was going
Mhm.
on. Basically, like for Chicky, we knew what colors he was going to be wearing, so we wouldn't choose artwork or something that would not be correct for him. But yeah, they were just extremely helpful in giving us all the information ahead of time. So they were very easy to work with.
Yeah, and Nathan Salter, the DP, was so helpful with the deli and just making sure Rachel had the right 2x4 lights in there, and all the lighting and all the refrigerators that you bought, and it was just such a great collaboration. The whole the walk-in freezer, and then at the wedding it was a lot of like twinkly lights. They had to deal with so much. They had to deal with like the color. There's so much color in this show, and a lot of DPs are just like no white. And I'm like, okay, well, how about all the colors? So the FBI office was just so much of that blue and green. So they were super supportive, and not scared. I was really worried because I just went to town with all the wallpaper in Baba's apartment, but thankfully they respected the vision. And there's this one light over the dining room, Rachel, that is just beautiful, like the smoke glass fixture
Yes.
over the dining
And
room.
most DPs would be afraid of it because it's bare bulbs, and it was a little bit scary, but he was not.
He was amazing. And
Yeah.
and even in the kitchen, I don't know that you see much of the ceiling fixture, but in those 70s and anywhere from the 50s to the 80s, the kitchens that have the tray lighting. And oh yeah, and the light and he was very collaborative with the light in the listening room, that
Yeah.
circle skylight that we did because it was a top floor apartment. I mean, there's a few circle motifs throughout the entire Baba's apartment. With Rachel found the lighting, and then we did the skylight that matched the reference image that I found, and then we did the screen between the dining room and the kitchen. It was just slats at one point, and then I was like, well, there's a circle here, I want to copy the circle into this. And then he framed his shot so well with the two boys. A lot of ensemble shots in this
Mhm.
series that just add so much to the comedy, with all four of the characters in the same frame, in the
Mhm.
same scene. You can just see all of their gorgeous faces and their reactions. It just adds so much to the comedy. So having a circle to shoot the two boys through, where
Mhm.
Sakura's talking about like, what is a credenza? Or, like those are so funny. And then you can see a little snippet of Rachel's like electric fireplace behind the circle. It's just so they did such a great job of featuring the set and framing the characters, that it was definitely very collaborative. And I'm just so happy that they played so well.
And the lighting department was amazing because we came in with a lot of extremely vintage fixtures that needed some help and some very specific bulbs, but they were not afraid to use anything. We had, vintage neons and a lot of stuff that people, a lot would kick off a lot of times, but they were not afraid to really play with anything. So it was great.
I mean, even that little electric fireplace
Yeah.
is its own, weird sort of practical in a way. And you have so many little novelty practicals in this set, but in other ones, it must have been, kind of its own thing doing fixture electrics.
For sure. Yes. They were amazing.
And we were so lucky that all of the actors gave us all of their photos. We didn't have time to do photo shoots, but we got Sagar and Asif's family photos. We got, some of Purna's, we got Abdullah's, we got Aisha, like everybody's in this set. They've all made it their home. And it was so wonderful to see it be so lived in towards the end.
Yeah, that's true. It is somehow both like a slightly sleazy Playboy apartment and also kind of it has a welcoming feel to it.
Yeah.
Baba's apartment. You made a good job of making it feel like somewhere that you wouldn't want to get out of immediately because they have to start living there.
Right.
It's warm and it's welcoming and it's also totally alien to how the boys have been living. Yeah, and there's a lot of really beautiful wallpaper in there. I think you have at least one wallpaper per room.
I think so. Even in the bathroom. Yeah. I spent a lot of time on the 3D model, just choosing, thank God for Aztec and their digital archive, because it really did help choose the wallpaper, because I couldn't, we were ordering this stuff and there was no ticksy backsies. It was what you get, you're going to put it up. So very lucky to have that resource, to be able to put it into a 3D model, to visualize it, to live with it, and then hand it to Rachel and Matt and be like, make the thing. And they were just so wonderful that they were like, okay, nobody questioned these crazy decisions. They were just like, let's do it. Cool. It was so wonderful to be supported by such an amazing team. And yes, and even the linoleum flooring that you see in the entryway and in the kitchen, David created the file, sent it to Aztec. We had custom linoleum printed for us, and we knew that when we were going to receive this with such a tight deadline, that it was going to be great. They shipped us samples. We made sure the colors were poppy enough because of course color was so important. It was a blessed show. Very thankful to have been a part of it and work with this amazing group.
I noticed that your deli exterior was on South Paulina. Paulina and what?
Hold please.
Yeah.
I think it's Bridgeport, actually. Yeah, West 31st, something, South Chicago. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'd call that Bridgeport in the 30s.
Yes.
Yeah.
Philly has specific street signs that they're very different. So we had to make sure that those were changed.
I think a lot of cities have their own specific street sign styles. So that would just be one of the things that you would have to make sure to get right for all of your Philly things. Rachel and Jessie, this has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much. And thank you both for joining us on Inside the Set and sharing your creative process on Deli Boys.
Well, thanks, guys. It's such a privilege to be on here. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Bye, Rachel. I love you.
I love you.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Inside the Set with Set Decor. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and visit our website, setdecor.com.